Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to tackle a real cornerstone of sociology, functionalism.
That's right.
And if you're maybe navigating your sociology studies right now, think of this as, well, your guide to one of the discipline's really foundational ways of thinking. We'll
Definitely.
try and break down what it is, who the main players were, and, how it helps us understand society, or sometimes maybe where it falls a bit short.
Yeah, the good and the bad.
Exactly. So, the mission today, just to give you a really solid, hopefully engaging grasp of functionalism's core ideas and why it's still, important in sociology.
Sounds good. So functionalism, at its heart, it's a way of looking at society from like a big picture view, a structural macro level
The
perspective.
macro level, okay.
Yeah. So instead of focusing just on, say, individual actions, it steps back. It looks at the whole system of society.
Right.
And a really common way to think about it, helpful analogy, is society as a biological organism, like a body.
Okay, I've heard that one. So like different organs doing different jobs.
Precisely. Your body has organs, right? Heart, lungs, brain.
Mm-hmm.
They all have specific jobs, specific functions, and they're all interdependent. They need each other for the whole body to survive and stay healthy.
Makes sense.
Functionalism sees society in a similar way. It's made up of different parts, or institutions think family, education, the economy, religion,
All connected.
all connected,
Yeah.
and each performing vital functions to keep the whole thing running.
Okay, let's dig into that society as an organism idea a bit more then. So the main point is that these institutions, they aren't just there randomly. They have specific jobs, functions to keep things stable.
That's exactly it. The
Mhm.
absolute core focus is on social stability and cohesion. How is order maintained?
Right.
Functionalists basically argue these institutions exist and they stick around because they do something necessary. They fulfill a purpose for the whole social system.
And what holds it all together? You mentioned something about shared values.
Yes, value consensus. That's
Yeah.
crucial. It's the idea that most people in a society agree on the core norms and values, what's right, what's wrong, what's important. And that agreement acts like the glue.
The social glue. Okay.
Without that shared understanding, functionalists argue, society would just fall apart.
Now, when we talk about the big names here, Emil Durkheim always comes up first, a founding figure, right? What were his main contributions?
Absolutely. Durkheim was deeply interested in how modern societies hold together, especially with all the changes happening back then.
Yeah.
Industrialization, urbanization,
Big changes.
huge. So his central idea was what he called social solidarity. Basically, how do individuals get integrated into society?
How do we feel connected?
Exactly. And he argued it happens through sharing common norms, values, beliefs, that feeling of belonging.
And didn't he talk about two different kinds of solidarity, mechanical and organic? What's the difference there? That's important for students to grasp, I think.
Definitely. So mechanical solidarity, that's what you find more in traditional, simpler societies.
Yeah.
Think pre-industrial villages.
Oh.
People there feel connected because they're mostly similar. They do similar work, live similar lives, share the same strong beliefs. It's solidarity based on likeness,
Right, everyone's kind of in the same boat.
pretty much. Then you have organic solidarity. This is what Durkheim saw emerging in modern, complex, industrial societies.
Like ours today.
Exactly. Here, we have a very complex division of labor. We all do different specialized jobs. We're not similar anymore in that sense,
No, definitely not.
but, and this is the key, we become deeply interdependent. I need the farmer, you need the doctor, we both need the person who fixes the internet.
Uh-huh. We rely on each other because we're specialized.
Precisely. And that mutual dependence creates a different kind of social glue, a
Yeah.
different kind of solidarity, organic solidarity.
That's interesting. But Durkheim also looked at things we usually see as negative, like crime. He said even that has a function. That sounds wrong, almost.
It does seem counterintuitive, yeah. But Durkheim wasn't saying crime is good. His point was more subtle. He argued that crime and deviance actually help society function in certain ways.
Oh.
Well, first, by responding to crime, by punishing it, society reaffirms its shared values and clarifies moral boundaries. It reminds everyone, this is what we don't accept. Boundary maintenance, he called it.
Okay, so it draws the line in the sand.
Right. And second, he suggested deviance can actually push social change forward. People challenging existing norms, even if seen as deviant initially, can lead to new ways of thinking, new laws. Think about, say, civil rights movements.
Right, actions that were illegal or deviant at the time led to major positive changes. Okay, I see the logic now.
It's about looking beyond the immediate act to its broader social consequences.
And he famously applied this thinking to suicide too, didn't he? Trying to link something so personal to social forces.
He did. His study on suicide was groundbreaking. It showed how this intensely individual act wasn't just individual. He linked suicide rates to levels of social integration and social regulation.
Integration and regulation.
Yeah. How connected people feel to their social groups, that's integration. And how much their lives are guided by clear social norms, that's regulation.
So weaker connections, higher risk.
Essentially, yes. He found, for instance, higher suicide rates among Protestants than Catholics and among unmarried people compared to married people. He argued this was related to lower levels of social integration in those groups.
Wow. So connecting individual troubles to broader social patterns, that's sociology right there.
Absolutely. It was a powerful demonstration of the sociological perspective.
Okay, moving on from Durkheim. Talcott Parsons. He built on this, but made it, well, more complex, right, with the AGIL scheme. That sounds a bit intimidating for students.
It can seem that way. Parsons was very systematic. He wanted to map out the basic needs, the functional prerequisites that any social system must meet to survive.
Any system, like even a small group.
Yeah, from a family to a whole society.
Uh,
AGIL stands for 4 fundamental problems systems need to solve. A is for adaptation.
Adapting to the environment, like finding food and resources.
Exactly. That's mainly the job of the economy, getting the resources the system needs from the environment.
Okay, A is adaptation. What's G?
G is goal attainment. Every system needs to define its goals and mobilize resources to achieve them. Think politics, government setting directions.
Makes sense.
I is integration. This is about coordinating all the different parts of the system, making sure they work together smoothly, managing conflict. Think legal systems, social norms, social control.
Keeping everything in sync. And L.
L is latency, or pattern maintenance. This is about maintaining the system's core values and norms over time, and also managing tensions or stress within the system. Socializing new members is key here.
Ah, so that's where things like family and education come in strongly. For the L part.
Precisely. Parsons really emphasized the role of primary socialization in the family, where kids first learn the basic rules and values.
The fundamentals.
Right. Then secondary socialization, like in schools, where you learn more specific roles and the values of the wider society, preparing you for adult life.
So socialization is crucial for passing on that value consensus we talked about, for keeping society stable, according to Parsons.
Absolutely vital. For Parsons, effective socialization ensures that individuals internalize society's values, making them want to do what society needs them to do. It maintains stability across generations.
Okay. Now, Robert Merton. He came after Parsons, and he seems to have tweaked functionalism a bit, even criticized parts of it.
Merton was hugely influential. He offered some really important modifications and, frankly, refinements. He made functionalism more flexible, more nuanced.
How so? What are the key Merton ideas students should know?
Well, one of the biggest is the distinction between manifest and latent functions.
Manifest and latent.
Okay. Manifest functions are the intended, obvious, recognized consequences of a social pattern or institution, what it's supposed to do.
Like education is supposed to teach skills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's its manifest function.
Yeah.
But then there are latent functions. These are the unintended, often hidden or unrecognized consequences.
Like what for education?
Well, a latent function of school might be acting as a marriage market, you know, or maybe reinforcing social class differences, even if that's not the stated goal.
Ah, the hidden side effects. That seems like a really useful tool for analysis.
It really is. It encourages you to look beyond the surface. Merton also talked about functional alternatives.
Functional alternatives. So, challenging the idea that things have to be done a certain way.
Precisely. He questioned the assumption that every existing social structure is indispensable. He said maybe other structures or practices could fulfill the same function just as well, or maybe even better.
So it opens the door for thinking about social change or different ways of organizing things.
Exactly. It counters the idea that functionalism is inherently conservative and just justifies the status quo. It suggests alternatives are possible.
And didn't Merton also use functionalism to explain deviance with his strain theory? You hear about that alongside the American dream?
Yes, strain theory is another major contribution. Merton argued that deviance often happens when there's a gap, a strain, between the goals society tells us are important.
Like wealth and success in America.
Right, the American dream goals. And the legitimate means society provides to actually achieve those goals.
So if you want the dream, but the normal path's education, good jobs seem blocked.
Exactly, that creates strain. And people might adapt in different ways, some of which are considered deviant, like crime to get wealth, or dropping out, or rebelling against the whole system.
Okay, that connects the broad cultural goals to individual actions, even deviant ones.
It links social structure and cultural values to rates of deviance.
You've covered a lot of key ideas. Maybe we can quickly recap the core concepts just to make sure they're clear for, anyone trying to get their head around functionalism.
Good idea. So fundamental is social structure, those stable patterns of institutions, roles, norms, values that shape our behavior.
The framework of society.
Yeah. Then there's socialization, the process of learning and internalizing those norms and values, starting in the family, primary, and continuing in school, work, etc., secondary.
Learning the rules of the game.
Pretty much. Central to order is value consensus, that widespread agreement on core values.
The social glue again.
Which leads to social integration, how connected people feel to society. Remember, Durkheim's suicide study, stronger integration, often means less deviance.
Right.
And finally, the idea of stability and equilibrium. Society tends towards balance, functionalists argue, and changes are usually gradual adjustments to keep the system working.
Okay, that's a good summary. Now, functionalism obviously inspired research. We mentioned Durkheim's suicide study. What other examples should students know about? How is it applied?
Well, Parsons' work on the family is a big one. This functional fit theory.
Functional fit.
He argued the nuclear family, mom, dad, kids, with a specific division of labor, became dominant in industrial societies because it was the best fit functionally.
Best fit for what?
For the needs of industrial society, like needing workers to be geographically mobile, moving for jobs. A smaller nuclear unit is more mobile than a big extended family. Also, fitting with values like achievement rather than just who you were born to.
Okay. And education, we touched on that.
Yes, both Durkheim and Parsons saw education as crucial. Durkheim focused on it transmitting shared culture, creating solidarity.
Like teaching national history or shared values.
Exactly. Parsons added that school acts as a bridge between the family, where you're judged by who you are, scribe status, and wider society, where you're supposed to be judged on merit, on what you achieve status.
So, preparing you for the meritocratic world of work in theory?
That was the functionalist argument, yes. Seeing education as sorting people based on ability.
And it's a big but. Functionalism has faced a lot of criticism over the years, hasn't it? It's definitely not the only way sociologists see the world.
Oh, absolutely. The criticisms are really important for students to understand to get a balanced view.
What are the main ones?
One major criticism is determinism. The idea that functionalism treats individuals like puppets, just shaped by the social system, and ignores their ability to think for themselves, make choices, resist, or create change. Human agency gets downplayed.
So it sees people as too passive.
That's the argument, yeah. Another huge critique comes from conflict perspectives, like Marxism and feminism. They argue functionalism glosses over inequality, power struggles, and social conflict.
Because it focuses so much on harmony and consensus.
Exactly. Critics say it presents this overly rosy picture of society working well for everyone, when, in reality, society is often marked by deep divisions and exploitation. It tends to legitimize the existing power structures.
Right, it doesn't ask functional for whom. Often enough, maybe.
That's a very good way to put it. Then there's the issue of historical and cultural specificity. Some functionalist ideas, like Parsons' view of the ideal nuclear family.
That functional fit idea.
Right. Critics point out that family structures vary enormously across cultures and history. Saying one form is universally most functional seems ethnocentric and ignores diversity.
Fair point. Anything else?
Well, related to the focus on stability, it's often criticized for neglecting social change, or at least not explaining it very well. It's good at describing order, but less good at explaining conflict, revolution, or rapid transformation.
Because it's always looking for how things return to balance.
Sort of, yeah. It struggles to account for fundamental shifts in the system itself, especially those driven by conflict, rather than gradual adaptation.
Okay, so wrapping up our deep dive then, we've seen functionalism looks at society as a system, focuses on how institutions contribute to stability, the importance of shared values. And we've met Durkheim, Parsons, Merton.
Key figures, key concepts like solidarity, AGIL, manifest, and latent functions.
Right. But we've also got to remember the criticisms. It's maybe too deterministic, ignores conflict and power too much, can be historically limited, and isn't great on rapid change.
Definitely. For sociology students listening, it's crucial to understand functionalism. It shaped so much of the discipline, but you have to see its limitations too. Use it as one tool, but not the only tool.
Yeah, it offers valuable insights into social order, but getting a full picture means looking through other lenses too. Conflict theory, interactionism, feminism.
Exactly. No single theory has all the answers. A good sociologist needs a diverse toolkit.
So here's a final thought for you, especially if you are studying sociology right now. Pick a social issue you're interested in, or one you're currently studying. Try applying a functionalist lens. Ask, what functions might this institution or pattern serve? How does it contribute to stability or perhaps instability?
And then crucially ask, what does this functionalist view miss? What conflicts, inequalities, or individual experiences does it overlook?
How would a different perspective, like conflict theory, analyze the same issue? Thinking through that comparison can really deepen your sociological understanding.
Great exercise.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into functionalism.